1985 was a key point in the mecha genre on a number of fronts. While the year itself was marred by tragedy, it did little to dissuade the genre from exploring darker paths. First out of the gate was Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, which is considered by many to be the best Gundam series to date. The series focused on Camille Bidan, a young new type who is caught between forces beyond his control. The young man is initially hesitant to join the anti-Earth United government forces against the Titans, but is persuaded to do so by the mysterious Lieutenant Quattro. Conflict between these two factions escalates into full-scale warfare, dragging remnants of Zeon and the Earth Federation into the battle. The series' pronounced refusal to shy away from horrific and brutal violence for the time earned its place as one of the truly groundbreaking television series. Gundam would see a resurgence in popularity thanks to this series, though it is debatable if it would ever reach these comparative levels of quality ever again. Zeta built on what Votoms had done before, and brought in semi-familiar Gundam packaging to make it more palatable. The series had some of the best designs by Kunio Okawada, Mamoru Nagano, and Kazumi Fujita to date, and few real-style mecha are as iconic as the Zeta itself. 20 years later, it was recompiled and put into 3 new films called Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam: A New Translation, and brought Tomino back in to helm the project. This is considered to be the truest version of the series, though it throws many other shows from the 80s and 90s into confusion because of it. Still, Zeta Gundam is an enduring classic and well-deserving of its place in the annals of mecha history. Next up was Super Beast Machine God Dan Kuga. This one was more than a little offbeat for the style of show it was, ostensibly a super robot show. Given the genre had mostly sputtered out by this point, to see it attempt to kickstart itself was admirable, and the show had great leeway to do what it pleased. It had a very heavy religious bent for starters, and incorporated elements of evolution into its mecha design, so it claimed. The machine itself didn't transform into its full Dan Kuga form until the midpoint in the series, and its component parts were more than capable of battle all on their own. It would also be quite popular in its time and get a sequel series in 2007. A personal favorite of your humble presenter, Blue Comet SPT Leisner, aired that same year. This was done by Ryosuke Takahashi, fresh off of his efforts with Panzer World Galliant, and while it was overshadowed by Zeta Gundam, the series is still a strong showing from the now venerable director. Leisner follows a rather super robot style of storytelling. An alien race comes and attacks Mars for fear of what the Earth might become, but the mecha designs and aesthetic is all real robot. The battles are hard fought and the stakes are high as Earth and the forces of Grotto square off for the first time, with Eiji Asuka stuck in the middle with his high-powered machine. The series was planned for release in the States in 2001, but was never brought over. According to the official story, the video masters that Bandai received were too damaged for print. More the pity, because the show is an intriguing, beguiling watch from the time that truly deserves a more notable place. Finally, in that year, Ninja Senshi Tobikage aired. This particular series is really only notable for getting aired in America in the mid-90s, as it was sort of a weird forerunner to what super robot shows would become. Still, the show itself wasn't bad, just kind of odd and out of place. In this big run-up of real robot shows telling stories about the human condition and space warfare, this seemed an awful throwback to shows that blew up a monster every week and called it a day. In spite of this, it was still a financial success and ran for 48 episodes through 1986. In 1985, Transformers was entering its second season, and again, while they made a significant impact on American culture, their status as sentient machines kind of precludes them from entry here. However, the more important piece of history for all of us in the good old US of A is to look at the series called Robotech. The show itself is something of a relic at this point, having aired just over 30 years ago, at time of recording. However, it has left an indelible mark on anime culture and the sci-fi world as a whole. For those of you familiar with Macross, the story is remarkably similar. For all the ills that people may heap upon the editing of the show, it's not unreasonable to think that if it weren't for Robotech, the anime fandom in the States would be very, very different. Robotech follows Rick Hunter, Lynn Minmay, and Lisa Hayes initially through the first Robotech war against the Zentradi. It then follows Dana Sterling and her crew against the Robotech Masters, and finally Scott Bernard and his team battle the Invid across Earth once more. The 3 series were all adapted from Macross, Southern Cross, and Mospeada, and somehow managed to form into one cohesive continuity, by some kind of miracle. But all was not well. While some lauded the series, Shoji Kawamori has been stated as not being happy with what happened to his work, and Robotech is still a hotly contested topic in North American anime circles to this day. In spite of repeated attempts in a relatively successful spin-off called Shadow Chronicles, Robotech landed and never quite got back off the ground. More the pity, because the series really did deserve better. Sadly, because of the way things were hashed out, this also means that Macross properties don't show up in the States at all, and while the original series were released on DVD, their distribution ended when ADV shuttered in 2009. Macross just can't catch a break. Love it or hate it, Robotech was a turning point for animated programming at the time. Characters lived and loved and died just like in the original series it was adapted from, and the story progressed without resetting to normal, which was something of a first. The series made a generation of Western gearheads and likely paved the way for Gundam Wing being brought over in the late 90s. However, robots in general were starting to putter and slow down in Japan, even after the runaway success of Zeta Gundam. Even the mightiest of warriors is not entirely infallible, and the Gundam series was about to trip over its own big transformable legs.